Hello there, testing, testing. Welcome to another bootleg production of the Mr. Ian F. Dunn, sort of random, very average, particularly unremarkable and sort of substandard and sort of just taken off a shelf from somewhere. Would be anything kind of, not bespoke in any way, just a very generic. Did I say bland? Did I say boring? What did I say about uninspiring? Something. I'm trying to think, Mr. Dunn. Sometimes you catch me. I'm really lost for words at how absolutely insignificant and absolutely doomed to failure that your entire political agenda is. Completely forgettable in the grand scheme of politics that you and your career, if you want to call it a career, what on earth have you been doing? 2 years? You say 2 years in captivity, like a sort of pound shop Julian Assange, and this is what you've come up with. Is that right? Well, that's my alter ego introducing me there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I have an alter ego. He is called the Munchurian candidate. I don't think he's an actual psychological event. He's just a fun character I've made up. And I've given him the access, perhaps unwisely, to my darkest, most negative, self-hating thoughts. And I've given him a little funny voice, which is something I got from a Buddhist teacher. And I highly recommend that you do too. Perhaps you suffer from some kind of weird internal strife, struggle. You're going through a great hardship, perhaps. Almost all of these symptoms that we suffer from, dear listener, will be because of the environment. Most, in fact, all disease, trauma-informed thinking, above all, in this politics throughout this tapestry of wisdom, I'm going to say wisdom, ideas that may or may not be wise to take us forward from this cul-de-sac of deep, deep depravity and social breakdown. Adjacent to many other things I'm publishing, this thing is called the Tapestry, right? Tapestry for a New Age, it says. Epoch Nova, and hopefully by this point you're familiar with what a thing I made called Epoch Nova, although the grand currently 3-episode long explanation of that thing is still a production that I'm working on, and because it's so big, it's so vast, and sometimes I just get a bit overwhelmed by it. And this one is a little bit less vast and a little bit more fun to do. So I'm going to try and get through a little description of what the Tapestry is and why there's a thing called Tapestry on my menu of political publications, adjacent to, as I was saying, a thing called No Society and a thing called Epoch Nova. Epoch Nova is the primary policy here, okay? And that's me. You're listening to me and you right now, you the listener, and me the broadcaster of political radicalism, are building a new age by having this conversation. Let me tell you more about that. Oh, my goodness, that's mystery. Ooh, what an introduction. Very good, very good. Not bad, not bad. Maybe. But intelligent people even just stick around to have a laugh. Know what I mean? Just proper politicians just stick around to have an absurd laugh at this sort of madman's obviously gone off the deep end in some sort of captivity, some sort of really unlawful skullduggery has happened, and this is the product of it. And I mean, just like he's saying, it's the environment of disease, so don't blame him for who he is. He's just a product of his little Scottish, neglected, chronic, long-term poverty, long-term neglect, long-term sort of sabotage of a sort of class war, economic neighborhood, neighborly, unneighborly, colonial type problems and such. You know what I mean? Listen, let's get on with it before we lose the audience. Yeah, please, mate. Can you just be quiet while I do a quick listen? Right, I'm going to have less of a silliness and try and be fairly straight myself through this and do quite brief explanations, because this is really meant to be like my alternative to doing a manifesto. What about a womanifesto? Well, I'd love a womanifesto. Is a womanifesto available? No, it's only a manifesto. Do you see the problem? Bloody patriarchy. Right, let's move on. So yes, Tapestry. Right, yeah, dude. Okay, I'll do it. Right. Right, fine, off you go. Okay. On you go. Thank you. Tapestry, right? Being quickly about this. Obviously, I am, dear listener, maybe you're just getting to know me. I have a Pilates studio, a very boutique and lovely one, down at the shore of Leith, where all the lovely bars and restaurants and everything's wonderful down here. It's really like a small metropolitan paradise. I like to call tiny Manhattan. Meanwhile, also though, through my veins runs some extremely Scottish blood. And for the weavers and Scottishness, and I just wanted to reference tapestries, maybe not the word we associate immediately with Scottishness, but holistic thinking is what I'm trying to connect this word to in our minds. It takes a tapestry. It would take, like, my politics is not about this kind of bungling schizophrenic mess that we have, where we've got a coin toss between complete madness on an extreme basis over here and then complete madness on an extreme basis over there. And so the trouble is, right, we just never really get to sensible solutions for a broad, strong society. The weaving is done to create strength, right? Tapestries are like this. They have these kind of like overlapping. I mean, don't ask me to weave anything. I'm a deeply incompetent person, could not do weaving. Solidarity to all the weavers. I know one locally, actually. I came as a client for a while. Meanwhile, the whole idea is absolutely backbreaking labor. Just be very careful how you're doing it. Perhaps I should look into that as a Pilates side hustle. The weavers, the weaving people of Scotland and the body agony, come to my studio in Leith and I will try and offer some remedy for you. Good luck today to you doing that. Maintaining Scottish culture by hurting yourself in industry. Seems so weirdly appropriate. So this thing, tapestry, weaving tapestries, alternative to a manifesto. Okay, this is as close to a manifesto as you'll get from me. That's what the tapestry is. A tapestry of a broad spectrum of political thinking, holistic political thinking. It means that there's an embracing of open source thoughts. There's an embracing of democratic principles. There's an embracing of new technology. There's coming to terms with where we are as a society and where we want to get to and how we're going to get there. So buckle up. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Move along, new slide now. Oh, yes, listen, as I'm the PR team, I'm the Munchurian candidate PR team, you see. I'll let you know when the slides are changing if you want to sort of make yourself busy and perhaps make a cup of tea. Whatever it is you like to do, podcast style, with a little bit of slide action, I'll try and tell you when the slides are changing, all right? Here we go, new slide. Now what's going on here? We've sort of taken a bit of a left turn from the weaving and whatnot, but this is more about girls and stuff. Exactly, mate. For a start, Epoch Nova. This constitution, it's very very special to me. It's from the deepest corner of my hearts and minds, and whatever I could come up with for how to make the world a better place really is. And you can't really do that without being feminist. Oh, here we go. Some woke. Are we doing wokeism up front? Well, wokeism is just logic. It's just natural to know and believe that all humans, regardless of their gender, ought to be treated with equality, equity, justice, fairness, have a good quality of life. The concerns of women are the concerns of men, the concerns of men are the concerns of women. We are all one and the same. There are a great many violations and outrages that we should all be very angry about. And often it can feel like it is that all the women that are after you or all the men that are after you. Let me just tell you before we go any further, there is no hatred in this work. My politics is an anti-hate campaign from top to bottom. You will not find hatred in here. If you do, it's an accident and I will stand corrected. Sometimes I let my feelings get away from me because I have witnessed harm to little ones. I have witnessed harm to pregnant people. I have witnessed harm to older ladies. I have witnessed harm to the most vulnerable people in our society, and I cannot tolerate it anymore. We need a new constitution. We need this Epoch Nova to be the last constitution. It will be the last constitution because it will continually renew and renew and renew. Everywhere where you stand, girls, boys, whatever gender you are, this is the new age. Whatever radicalism you have in mind, I've really just put this slide up here up front because I want to make sure you understand. Although I am as white and male and hobbitish as it could ever possibly get, and basic, don't forget basic. Don't forget how basic and straight you are and whatnot, and how you're sort of just a reforming sort of man from the 90s, caught in the time machine and all that, like the rest of us are. Yes, the Peter Pan syndrome, the whatever it is it the Captain Hook syndrome or the Peter Pan syndrome? I don't know what it is. Peter Pan complex. We're always boys. We're not like until you become a father, then you become a man. Then you are a father. And when you become a father for everybody. My feminism here, guys, I hope I can pass the smell test of being a feminist. I will do my best. Well, that'll probably pass the smell test. At least this is trying. Come on, girls, give him a point for trying. At least give him a point for trying. All right? Next slide. Come on, quickly. Oh, dear Lord. No, hang on. We're not here for that. Look, we don't need another woke meltdown. Can you try and get through this whole thing without a woke meltdown? This was one of your most epic woke meltdowns. Dude, that was not a woke meltdown. That is a kind of prose download event that took place. I don't want to call it poetry. I don't feel like I deserve that kind of title. But the thing is, it's a thought barfing, anyway, an idea barfing, a comment on how cross-border hatred and international hatred and national hatred and hatred of all kinds really is just completely unacceptable. So forgive me for the woke meltdown, but the world is falling into deep dark fascism at the minute. I don't really have another way to deal with that other than to speak and cry out. And sometimes that just literally means, weeping a little bit, rather pathetically. But people who love things care about them. People who love things have deep emotions. People who love things get worked up and angry about things not being how they ought to be for the ones that we love. This is natural. This is normal. Although I'm being silly and whatnot in this coverage of politics, I don't want you to think that I don't take it very seriously. The pertinence, the urgency in my life crises and your life crises and everybody's life crises, where we cannot get a law system that works, we can't get police that work, we can't get healthcare that works, we can't get GP practices that work, we can't get ambulances that come and get us, we can't get the fire brigade to have enough stuff, we can't get buildings that don't just burn down appallingly, we can't get politicians that don't take money and look the other way all the time. Things are very, very bad, dear listener. So if you need a bit of catharsis, here's a little plug for my Spotify podcast. Well, you'll find me here's the Munchurian candidate. Very dark, deep place. All of this is satirical art, kind of, I suppose, an outlet for myself, shouting into the void. Maybe you would find that therapeutic. And check it out. Nations have no borders is a very specific phrase that I continue to use. And when I use it, I'm referring to this piece of my own work and my own thought. Best wishes to you, whatever land, wherever you are. We're all in this mess together, I'm afraid, dear listener, aren't we? So we've got to try and pull together. Oh, right, okay. Before you have another woke meltdown, let me just take over. Again, when this, you know what? We need international brotherhood and sisterhood and every other whatever gender. I don't care what's up your culture and your culture. Don't tell me about that. Too much information. I don't care. But we're all humans. Let us unite and live in peace together. Better, right? Yeah, that's good, man. Okay, so just to recap that, first thing on the tapestry, of course, is Epoch Nova, the new age of politicians. We need a new age of politicians. It's an oath akin to the Hippocratic oath that is taken by doctors. I want you to think about Epoch Nova, the new age, a Magna Carta, a Copernican shift. I'm describing this as. How dare I describe my work as something so illustrious and vast and impactful? Well, look, here is how to define. I don't know if I can achieve it. I'm just trying to define what it is in a storyteller sense. A politician is a future storyteller, right? So think about it. There was a time, and I would argue, to be honest, we might still be living in that time when doctors had a very toxic relationship with patients, and that things were very asymmetrical and abusive and whatnot, and there were monstrous Frankensteinish things going on, and they had to develop a thing called a Hippocratic oath. And the Hippocratic oath was a way to make sure that doctors then earned this default status. I mean, right around the world, think about these conventions, how old and vast these conventions are. That Hippocratic doctors would take an oath to say, "I'm going to do no harm. I'm not going to help people. I'm never, I am yet to find one that actually honors that oath. If I'm completely honest with you, dear listener, that's just a sort of running kick in the nuts of establishment thinking and whatnot. But the principle there is true, and I don't know why such a thing ought not belong in our political leadership. So, Epoch Nova, I've written an oath. I would advise every politician of a new age mindset, like myself, radical change, humanistic change, Darwinian evolution, fossil record, no mumbo jumbo. Let's try and have a future where we can all survive on this earth together in peace kind of thinking, people, which is pretty straightforward, right? And equality among the genders and etc. Pretty straightforward, entry level, centrist minded thinking person. Anyone from the community can buy into those basic core principles. And thus we can actually, I think, create an oath that politicians can take, and thereafter their behavior shall vastly be improved. Will it be perfected? Come on, guys, give me peace, right? Like, it's an uphill permanent struggle, isn't it, for justice? The point is proposing constitutional change that involves map changing and election stuff and all that, even just changing things like getting rid of the filibuster and whatever, these kind of constitutional reforms. Even the 13th Amendment hasn't really worked if you think about it, but Mr. Lincoln hasn't really succeeded yet. Even Mr. Lincoln's ghost is turning up in my dreams and telling me that it's not over because the Dixie flag is flying in the House of the People, etc. Our politicians are disastrously bad individuals. And what I want to try and point out is that many people who vote for them are falling into a trap that they don't need to be falling into. And we don't need to have this culture of toxicity in politics. And in fact, we could have a new age of politics. And that new age would come after the success of an oath. And I would hope that I could then teach, and all politicians and all new age politicians could teach the culture. Just the same as when, like, you go over and you want what kind of accountant do you want to use? You want a chartered accountant or a non-chartered accountant? Oh, I better use a chartered one, right? Yeah. Do you want to have a politician that you've got a contract with, or a politician that you don't have a contract with? You mean, are you going to vote for a completely rogue politician who you don't have any basis for your contractual relationship for him to represent you in active democracy? Are you nuts? He will do skullduggery, of course he will. And that will be the new age. When that is the culture, when the culture is so clear that what I'm putting forward, flawed and imperfect and sort of old manish and sort of unstylish or whatever you might want to say about my work, the point is, you get to represent, be original wherever you are in the world as a new age politician, and run as an independent politician, one that will never ever join a party, one that will only ever really form their own holistic approach to politics, present their own constitution to the people, and sign up to be a politician on that basis. There we have a new age. Abolishing lies, second businesses, religions, affiliations, things like that. I've put stuff in mind that I think is a start point. I want to propose it and offer it to people who think this could be a way forward. Let us all become new age politicians, like an Elliot Ness generation of untouchable politicians to completely transform and disrupt this insane burglary, fraud show, clown show, Mickey Mouse operation run by buffoons largely. I think that their market is wide open for the taking, guys. So come with me and join me, become a new age politician. Over here, we got militarism, pro-soldier, anti-war. Maybe you come from one of our public sectors that I'm regularly piling in on, and you've come out there going, I have to change things. Things are so very bad in there. Like this sort of angry Hobbit Leaf man says, there's a lot of corruption. There's so much bogus activity that the good ones are the tiny minority, and the vast majority of people working on the front line are hazards and whatnot. It might be. Maybe in the army, it's just doing war crimes on the front line. Maybe you witness stuff like that. Maybe you've decided that I just can't put up with the foreign policy of our country anymore because it's putting us all in danger, and you just feel a call. You feel conscripted. Maybe you feel conscripted. Well, don't conscript yourself into the army and whatnot, militarism. Give yourself to fools. Give yourself to fascists and whatnot, as Charlie Chaplin would say. Join politics. Conscript yourself into politics. This is a noble profession now. This is a noble profession in the new age, not a skullduggery, scumbaggery site of complete shambolic, horrendous corruption and whatnot. The new age is what it is. It is the new age is when we have politicians who work for us in the way that we want. And I mean, really overcoming even such sectoral failures as the legal sector. transcending the standards of these other sectors in democratic politics is the core part of this tapestry. Without this, there isn't really any other tapestry of any other cool stuff. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next slide, shall we? That was quite fiery. Okay, go on, next slide. As well, I've got the vape out here. We've got the Hobbit's leaf on the go, where we're talking about white collar crime. What do you mean white collar crime? What do you mean the Hobbit's leaf? You mean the cannabis? Yeah. Well, listen, it's just an example of things that are crimes that really ought not to be crimes, and yet things that are not a crime that really ought to be a crime. So, like, the white collar crime bill will hopefully try and redress some of that in a vast and expansive way. So, you can see that my white collar crime bill here have affiliated that with a few brands. First of all, like some of my brands for fun, I've peppered some of my favorite brands. I have a brand with the Loch Ness Monster as a sort of non-binary, ambiguous gendered person, lovable, adorable character, like all are. And then, which is a necessities brand for doing cargo bike deliveries and such. Concierge is a brand for doing much more premium, super premium even level of catering and supplying and delivering to addresses or businesses using the cargo bike itself. Broad spectrum of things, market sensitive, come back to that later. Love letters to great business is just a thing that I do. I sometimes just want to identify that there is excellent business. There is such a thing as great, good, honorable, truly fantastic business. Business that's as good as you can get it. And I mean, let's be clear, business is what we're doing, guys. For us, creatives, I mean, men, men, we don't get to do creation. That's the ladies. Ladies get to do the creation. We get to do the business stuff. We get to do the business and the forging and the building and the constructing and experimenting and the jumping up things and climbing things. That's generally what the biology sets out. But again, because we're in this post-gender world now, guess what? It's cool. We can do whatever you want. So forgive me for my old silliness. The Velo Nova brand, for example, has got lots of rainbow vibe to it. Most of my brands have got a subtle rainbowy hint or a nod or something. Concierge is a little bit more of a professional brand. I want that one to be a little more high value. I want that. I'm telling you this. I'm rambling in this way to make sure the listener, the fearful business owner, is looking at my very woke, very radical platform and going, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." Listen, I am by far and away the most successful businessman candidate in the country. I have gone from a life crisis to an expertise to a lucrative business that kept me when living the most high quality life that you can. It has only been disabled, destroyed, and had to be diverted into politics now because of chaos coming from politics, quite frankly. That would be the pandemic and whatnot. Now, Velo Nova, and also these little cute guys. I see the little one there's got a little trans vibe to it. I'm really trying to make sure that the wokest and the leftist and the green person is positive about business in my political world, right? Because we cannot have anti-business greenness, and we also can't have anti-human and anti-planet business anymore. All right? So there has to be pragmatism there. My white collar crime bill is going to be of a bit of an assault on the old corporate law, right? Corporate law is a bit of a toxic being, and even Epoch Nova itself offers some thought on how we can eradicate quite a lot of corruption by just not dealing with corporations as human beings anymore. Corporate rights being equivalent or superior to human rights will be abolished in that white collar crime bill. So help me God, or whomever, non God, secular God, the people, because the people want that. The people is my God, right? People are my God. What the people want is God to me in Epoch Nova Constitution, right? So the family business itself, right, is one of the most honorable, cool things about being a human, right? Having a business, having an asset. Sometimes that asset might come in cash, but more often than not, it should come in stuff. So a brand, a thing, a skill, a trade, a tool. One of my great things I hope to pass on somehow, if it kills me, it might well do, is to try and get Pilates out there into the mainstream in a bigger way so that other people don't go through what I went through with my thing. What am I doing? I'm doing pure capitalism. There's a need in the market. I've found some expertise. I'm teaching it. I'm giving it back. That's what capitalism is. Capitalism is inherently logical, just an entropic fact about life. We have to create wealth. If you posh people are just extracting wealth and never ever creating wealth, you are not capitalists. The white collar crime bill, for me, will be about separating the good capitalism from the bad capitalism. Oh, no, that sounds very sanctimonious and all sorts of ethical. How on earth? How on earth are you going to do that? You need the free market to do that. You need to let the market decide. Exactly. What do you mean exactly? You're saying that you're going to decide. No, 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 no. Just no, 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 no. My politics is democratic absolutism. And I hate to break it to you, like, despite the fact that, take for example, healthcare, the paradox with what I do, it's up against traditional approaches from medicine, such as drugs and surgery, and doctors telling people bogus things about their body on a mass scale, and society believing that the doctors are just worth listening to more than a wee random angry hobbit like me. Yes, well, that's quite credible, is it not? Yes, well, I mean, it is and it isn't, because like I'm trying to demonstrate an evidential way of thinking that one of these things, the free market, is supporting on its own. So, were it not for all the sabotage of the pandemic, the Toryism, and all the bloody toxic class war nightmare stuff I've had to deal with of late, the police dysfunction, NHS dysfunction, social work dysfunction, the breakdown of the so-called society Thatcherism, because you've broken down our society, it has broken down business. You cannot have healthy business, you cannot have good, strong businesses without healthy society, good, strong society. There is no society, says business. Well, there is no business, will say society. Society will look back at you and say, you have no business then, because society and business are inextricably linked. So if I could compare myself to Thatcher as well for one bold moment, what I want to do is I want to do what Thatcher did to our housing market, right? But I'm going to do that for family businesses, and family businesses of an ecological, ethical, community friendly nature will flourish after the white collar crime bill, will be protected in the way that horrible corporate businesses are now, with clever, sneaky legislation and subsidizing and supporting through a bank called Draco Dormians, a lovely big bank, which will be an ethical bank, a community bank, a bank that will build ecological freelance businesses for you, for me, for everybody. I thought this was about crime. Wait a minute. I've lost on the crime bit. What do you mean about the crime? Well, I'm trying to point out that, class warfare and economics can often be a crime, sir. Not just in the bogus way of things like, this is a vast one, the white collar crime bill. It is vast. It's got its own website at the moment. But white collar crime, corporate crime, posh people picking on people with no money all the time and making it a business, it's akin to slavery in its presentation. So that is where the spirit of abolition belongs. Right next to business, right next to the economy, right next to the environment and society, all things living in harmonious growth fashion. You will see birth rates, you will see happiness, you will see a drop in mental health crisis, you will see an improvement in productivity, you will see cool, genius things happening. It can happen once we get some of these despicable chains of slavery akin conditions removed, and we will do that with public policy. People, you have to have belief that public policy will work. I believe in government. I believe in winning elections. I believe if I can win an election, I can do a damn sight better than these fucking half-wits at charge at the moment, if you don't mind me saying. And really, guys, there's so many good businesses up and down the country that do not deserve the hatred of the green movement at all, that deserve the support of the green movement to help transition. So that's my attitude. A very, very green person, I'm very, very pro business, because being pro business is just being pro society and everything else. Okay. Pragmatism. Okay. Will we move on to the next slide then? Heaven and earth. Heaven and earth must be moved. Heaven and earth. Gosh, we've gone from Copernicus. Now we're moving heaven and earth. I thought you were anti-spiritual. You know what I mean, mate? I'm using prose here to point out how completely and totally unacceptable that we have a rape-tolerant culture. We need to recriminalize in a draconian way that I would describe as abolishing, right? So, in other words, for women's liberty to really be safe and protected, we must have a new act. So part of this next part of the tapestry, and again, it's in order of some choice here. I tell you, I want to get stuck in on this one because things are so serious at the moment with children, young women, girls, babies even are completely unsafe to predators in this country. I don't know how more profound the failure could be. I have tried to write a document called No Society to explain how it is this just fundamental. There isn't really a higher duty in society than protecting our women children, right? That is basically the whole damn point of it. Darwinian thinking I'm trying to put forward to you all to understand that when these people are saying there is no society, they are pathologically broken inside. They are dysfunctional. They don't have a legit politics. Fascism is not legit politics, it's just human pathology, usually along these lines: reproductive, beta human activity. So humans that have decided to conduct either sort of male, female, whatever gender led, whatever religion, maybe it's kind of like whatever form of corruption, usually does revolve around getting hands on women and girls and children. Okay, that's really what the church does. That's really what finance does. That's really what politics does. Really what warfare is. It's really all these things. There must be a Magdalene Act. Magdalene Act, again, is an open source title of a broad spectrum of political activity that I would describe as the complete and total abolition of rape and the absolute enshrining of women's liberty in a constitutional way. And so this constitution, you can see, girls, we're never going to get it into the damn American constitution in a way that they can't screw with. Somehow, even in America, we've had this whole idea that you have to get to choose your own religious freedom, your own religious opinions, but for some reason that just doesn't apply to women getting to decide when life begins and when it doesn't. I could be here all day on this subject, guys, okay? But let's just put down for sure that protecting reproductive rights, and this is where I hope to try and get a crossover with a Dadifesto, which I've not mentioned here, so maybe it's later on. The Dadifesto and the Magdalene Act, generally I try to make sure I'm talking about them both at the same time, because reproductive rights violations do go both ways. Reproductive rights violations come from women to men as well as from men to women. It's the ones that are coming from women to men are not only socially tolerated, that it's actually a private market, a slave-like market of extraction of childhood, removal of childhood, utility of children as a kind of extortion weapon, an abuse weapon, and so on. These are more passive-aggressive, less obvious ones than actual physical rape and such that we're discussing here. Essentially, a Magdalene Act and a Dadifesto together applied in this tapestry would preserve reproductive rights, would safeguard kids, and make children, the protection of children, the protection just also of that the phase of having kids, so like families and so on. This is hopefully a very progressive and enlightened piece of work here. I'm having to commit a lot of time and thought to that. I'd love to hear. I can't really do this without girl input, can I? Otherwise, it's going to be mansplaining all the time. Yes, mansplaining. You're on here mansplaining stuff. Well, I know, but the thing is, I don't believe in division. I believe in gender justice. I think that whatever gender, whatever kind of flavor of in-betweeny gender you're struggling to cope with or having an easy time with, I don't know. It's up to you. Love and solidarity to you. I've found being a man very hard to cope with because men in my house are just always the villains. So I've grown up feeling like I am a villain, and then I've had somebody come along and tell me that I am a villain. I don't think that I am a villain. I think that I have been targeted in a way that is a similar kind of gender violence. It just is not at all addressed or tolerated, quite opposite. It's somewhat applauded and celebrated and congratulated and enabled and so on. So there's a need for a gender justice proposals, and they would include the Magdalene Act and the Dadifesto. Also on this page, we've got here is a proposed to the UN, the Nomad Global Passport. Discussed that a moment ago. No humans should ever be illegal anywhere in the world. This is my position on that. No humans are illegal. Calling humans illegal is disgusting. Stop it. Just absurd. Just shut up about your stupid border nonsense. You talk rubbish. Nothing that you say makes economic sense. The most powerful country in the world is the most pro-immigration country in the world. You imbeciles, you xenophobic, backward people. Don't you dare consider yourself in solidarity with me if you partake of the racism or the lynch mobbing and or the Robinson or the whomever or the Andrew Tate or the whatever. Don't think just because I'm anti-establishment and I talk about Magna Carta sometimes doesn't mean that I'm one of those despicable, degenerate, zero integrity, rapey men. The consistent feature of them, the Catholic Church-going people, whatever faith it is, sorry to pick on Catholics. The point is, that's just the best example that we're most familiar with punching that. The trouble is, even now, these churchgoers, whether they have vaginas or penises, or they are all doing creepy priest-like stuff, aren't they? And institutional problems of this nature are not as simple as men are the baddies, women are the goodies. Sorry, it's not that simple. I'm sorry to report, it definitely isn't that simple. Now, how do we deal with some of these problems? This New Age constitutional sovereign. It's another big one I'm working on. So, what do we do with the monarchy? I think that I cannot really be a strictly independent freelance politician if I don't have contribution thought on sovereignty and so on. So Epoch Nova itself embraces sovereignty as long as that is democratically backed. Straightforward, no difficulty with that, very easy. So in Epoch Nova, when one is taking the oath to become a politician, one recognizes the sovereign and the crown and so on, so that we have something that can legitimately work in UK law, British law, and so on. Okay. However, the caveat would be that democratically absolutism does apply. So, in other words, if the people decide, had enough of this sovereign nonsense, let's just go full democracy, or what I would propose, a sort of hybrid. We'll come to that later. Epoch Nova 2 with the II to look like a cool, like a movie thing and something profound. So Epoch Nova 2 should be done before I'm running for an election, but my lord, I'm putting out fires. But bear with me. So there's thought there on how we could democratize, modernize sovereignty, the sovereignty of our monarchy. So the monarchy itself, I am not fundamentally against the idea of having a head of state as such. It is this monarchism and the toxicity of that, this sort of hierarchical humanity stuff. No, 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 no. Sorry. I don't really have any tolerance for that at all. However, in the law and in politics, Machiavellianism and the rule that somebody has to take charge, somebody has to be responsible. Many of our problems come from a diffusal of responsibility and a lack of liability, completely no accountability. Who did this? They did it. The thing did it. The thing did it. What do you mean the thing did it? Okay, all that stuff's got to go in anti-corruption future. So there's that page. That's quite a few cool things. Let's move on, shall we? Move on to the next slide. Thanks, man. Thanks, mate. Bum, 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 bum. I'm getting all British. There's a bit of a British feeling here. Don't you get all inspirationally British sometimes? I do. No matter how deeply Scottish and absolutely rooted into the earth I am, I'm still somewhat British. Just like I'm somewhat American. Just like I'm somewhat a person of the world. I feel very close to France as well. I feel very much in love with Ireland. I feel very much obsessed with Italy. I feel very much kind of enamored with Australia. Australia is an amazing place. Like Canada is a beautiful, stunning, vast land of infinite space and immenseness. Look, the world is here for us all, folks, all right? So sovereignty and the nation and all these things are very paradoxical. Okay, we can't, it's paradoxical. It requires pragmatism. It requires that a person can cope with things that don't quite fit together perfectly, but somehow organically we move forward in a little bit of tolerable chaos, a little bit of tolerable chaos in amongst great amounts of order and stability is the perfect recipe for life, all right? Like a huge earthy grounded stability, and then above that just that humming buzzing chaos of beauty and transformation and life and death and whatnot. Now, thinking philosophically and big about it, excuse me for sniffing, as rather disgusting. How do you delete a sniff from a recording? I don't think the audience will mind, mate, if I just have a sniff. I mean, the whole point is to be authentic and original. But you said doing that with your disgusting bodily functions on the recording. Oh, I know. Sorry, listener. What's on the page here? Right, Epoch Nova 2 is the sovereignty Project Sovereignty. Big deal. Haven't finished this. I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. It's very simply an idea where we cannot simply have one single head of state. Okay, and we cannot have two, kind of a king and a queen, and it just creates kind of gender paradoxes and whatnot. So, what is the logical number? I'll give you a clue. It's a magic number. Three, is it three? Three is the magic. Three is a magic number. That's a song. Yeah, exactly. Three is a magic number is a song. And three is a magic number if you think about it. It's sort of divine and curious and fascinating. I mean, the Christian people, it's all about what do they call it? It's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Goat. The Holy Ghost, I think. You mean the Holy Ghost. It's a Holy Ghost. I thought it was a Holy Goat. Oh, right. That makes a lot of sense now. Oh. Right, listen, why don't I take over for a minute, Mr. Dunn? See, this is what you need a proper politician for, right? Somebody who's actually done some politics and knows a little bit out the world. Let me tell you, we need a sovereign. There needs to be a head of state. And in the United States, we have the president, and the president has a kind of immense power. I'm clothed in immense power, as Abraham Lincoln would say. Now, dear listener, we do need power, don't we? Like, one of the problems we're having is not having a focused, what would you say, a locum of control within our country, sovereignty, a sovereign actor, a decision making unit that we can rely upon to prioritize the people, to protect the people, to not let the power, all the other dodgy powers, rise above it. So, fundamental concept of the project of sovereignty is how to consolidate democratic power behind a new format for head of state, a new way of looking at what, like, I would have a head of state that is three minds. Okay, I would have a head of state that is three democratically elected individuals who have something like a 10 or a 15 or maybe even, I don't think that they should have to be removed unless they become unpopular, right? The fundamental thing about Epoch Nova, the Copernican shift of my politics, is saying democratic absolutism. There is absolutely no excuse at any point for politics that is not with the consent of the people behind it. And I want to bring that into monarchy. There is no point in tolerating what we have as sufficient. It is broken, it is parasitic in nature, it's quite disgusting, right? What we need is something that works. We need something similar to that, that's not an abomination, that's not a sort of weird church amalgamation of predatory patriarchal madness, but it's instead something progressive and enlightened. And I would say a Renaissance type culture here is what I want for Epoch Nova, a new age of thinking about really taking political conventions, all of which are at war, and trying to find pragmatic ways forward. Okay, so what does it say? It says drafting a plan to enhance the effectiveness of UK executive power in responding to the needs of the people. To deal with whom? Well, I can think of a few people that it might be useful because there's a few sort of very rich people who are very problematic. I don't know if I want to name them. I don't think we do want to name them, but no, there are very, 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 very wealthy people who are problematic. And so this would be a way to consolidate the people's power in a way that transcends a lot of these other issues and symptoms. We would have a person who can really have some criminal justice power to bring down unique executive orders that will restore order, balance, and stability and protect the people from predators. It's about protecting people from the kind of thing that's happened. Sorry to bring me into it, but again, we'll talk about you again, are we? Well, not just me, but many, many other people where society fails, right? I would like the new sovereign, the new monarch, the new unit of superior, democratic people sovereign, right? Which would be three people capable of looking at cases. Take the Letby case, again, something that lands way above all the systems, and these folk would have a very long tenure. However, default would be like there's only people that we love that we can give this trust to, isn't it? Yes, it's only people like people do have to love the monarchy. That's they have to love Princess Diana, and they have to love Charles and all that because they've got a sort of status, a hierarchical superior human that we've chosen, God's representative here on earth. Yes, well, I would like to maybe take some of that and just be like, look again, remember the Epoch Nova in my constitution. I'm saying to you, the spiritualist, I'm saying to you, the religious person, although I'm a secularist, and you're never going to get a lot more than accepting of some mystery about the universe, but there's not a huge amount of mystery. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff kind of settled and clear and just are the way things are. And so we can modernize. I believe in moving past this archaic monarchy thing and having something more enlightened and more useful and actually a force in politics that could be a real deal. I personally would like to nominate people for this role. I mean, imagine if the way I would like to abolish the House of Lords, I'll be honest with you, right? Just get rid of the damn thing. That's not in here in the tapestry, but it would be part of this project. This project would be saying, where is power? No, that's not legit. That's not legit. That's not legit. And really actually giving a couple of individuals the ability to see that. And I reckon if we had the right three individuals, they would be like this House of Lords. Logically, most people would come to that same conclusion. So this kind of idea could create immense power, and we'll finish maybe on this note here. We want to revive the abolition of the abolition culture. Abolitionist, I consider myself an abolitionist because, of course, I don't. The way that humans live in any way that resembles or is close to slavery, I find it absolutely appalling, disgusting, intolerable. I cannot live with it. I want to have a society of equality in general. Of course, you cannot have some kind of weird communist fascist kind of everybody's the same, blah, blah, blah nonsense. Don't strawman me. What this is about is making sure that people do not fall into conditions that are subhuman because it's bad for them, it's bad for us, it's bad for everyone. It's just fundamentally bad, wrong, and unacceptable. Dehumanizing conditions. I hope to try and restore. A lot of my stuff is about re-opting, right? Let's take this thing that they've made toxic, which is actually really, really good, and make it something better. And the monarchy is that example. Let's take this thing that is something toxic or that's become toxic or whatever, always was toxic, whatever. Can we take it back and turn it into something good? Well, I would like to do the same with capitalism. All right, capitalism itself is not again what they point to and say this is capitalism isn't actually what Mr. Smith said out at all. It doesn't look anything remotely like it. You got people sitting on their ass doing nothing but taking from society. I mean, it's just not at all what he had in mind. I hate to bring it to you. So, abolition and so on, sovereignty, these things are all kind of united on this page. Shall we move on? Yes, I think we should move on. It would be a whole all day basically if you don't carry on. Thank you. Next slide. What have we got mushrooms on here for? I don't actually know, mate. I think they're from the previous thing, but it sort of makes sense. Anyway, open source politics is kind of like a couple of my brands have got mushrooms up front, just because, like, partly I think that psilocybin could really be one of Scotland's main exports, one of our biggest exports. Grows out of cow fields and whatnot. It's generally criminalized, madness, but whatever. Like, growing open source politics, it says here. So recruiting support. So, like, out of the mushroom, like little fun guys grow up out of the rot, don't they? When things are decaying and whatnot. I think that we're in a period of decay. I think we're in economic decay, social decay, political decay. And so decay, one of the upsides, I guess, is some lovely mushrooms every now and then. Are you on the mushrooms right now? No, I'm not on the mushrooms right now, dude. I know sometimes it seems like that. I don't blame you for thinking that. But this is about the great unhack. Yes, this is like a way to try and unhack our democracies, right? So we need people like myself to run in other constituencies. I'm going to run in either Leith or Edinburgh West here in Edinburgh, but we need other people, and open source politics would be the brand I've put forward for that. Open source politics. It means pick up and go politics. Here's a kit, download a constitution, download a platform, download a brand if you need to, and just start knocking on doors and run as a candidate. I want to make it as easy as possible in my tapestry of politics for grassroots or sort of fungal regrowth, you say? It's not fungal, right? Yes, finding growth in the decay, right? We need to just get up off the couch. Like me, I've had to be forced because of my life and all that stuff. But surely others may join me. I have developed a plan during my time in despicable, incarcerated circumstances and whatnot. Let's come back to that later. But the Munchurian candidate, this is you. You're the Munchurian candidate. I think you're the Munchurian candidate, but I'm just a part of your imagination, of course. Yes, okay, dude. So you don't need to be Manchurian candidate and all this weirdness and all this sort of silly stuff I'm doing. But, fundamentally, I pick up and go constitution for anyone anywhere that's not a party. And remember, it's not a party. There's no party. This is anti-party. Yeah, this is when parties are dying and being abolished and disappearing. Instead, what we have is these fantastic, new, interesting developments. Okay, next slide. Right, a capitalist reformation. You think you're going to tell us how to do a reformation of capitalism? That's quite lofty, is it not? It is lofty, mate. And I mean, unfortunately, I've spoken about this. Speaking of reforming capitalism, just 2 moments ago, before this recording, I recorded a very good explanation of this, and then the whole recording just disappeared into the ether. And I just the one thing about doing improv stuff and doing things off the cuff, like everything I do is off the cuff, the trouble is that if the device that you're working on just randomly, buggishly, just forgets the thing you've just produced and it just disappears, it's just a thing that should not happen, technology, all right? Technology, if you think about it, look at the state of affairs with technology. Technology, right? We've got technology people who produce technology with the sole purpose of returning cash. So it creates all kinds of bugs and problems and issues where the business's intent for profit, profitability, perhaps even like dodgy return on profitability and so on, like licensing and copyright. There are a lot of things about capitalism at the moment that is really just monopoly capitalism that is not producing anything. So we've got a situation here. Hang on a minute. Ironically, I have just had to pause the recording and go away and respond to a phone call that, of course, was just a bogus Mickey Mouse trying to sell me something in a predatory fashion. As I've said, when technology and business get together, sometimes it can go horribly wrong, can it not? Yes, mate, indeed, indeed. And I think like this, so what I'm putting forward, the capitalist reformation, how do we get these despicable fascistic run businesses under control democratically in lots of ways? Well, the bosses are just really bad people, aren't they? So we're going to start with a sack the boss campaign for a start. We're also going to have like a, basically just executive pay. I mean, executives, just wipe them all out. Just, I don't mean wipe them all out in some kind of horrific, violent way. I just mean sack the buggers, right? Fire them. You need to get together in your workplace and confront the boss and say we've all got together and decided that you just are not worth what you're taking out of the business. So we fire you now, right? And wherever that is not possible, I will create laws that make it possible, right? You think about it. If you're in a gigantic business and you get some bungling, I'm not going to say Musk level, but something akin to that, where, and I've seen it many, many times, where there's a great business being run by an absolute buffoon, an executive imbecile. I'm trying to not name people, but I worked for a hotel here in Edinburgh for a long, long time, and the boss of that is an absolute obstinate fuckwit. He really is. He's just completely and utterly head is in his own ass. And so we get these situations where people who are not worth a single penny are charging insane money and then delivering absolute garbage and nothing at all. In some cases, it's just full-blown passive income where people are making money off the stock market or the property market. These kind of things just need to change. They're just not legit capitalism, right? So, I mean, the capitalist reformation fundamentally to me is about saying, well, a business really ought to be a net positive for society. If business is a net negative to society or the environment or the people, etc., if we can find legitimate reasons why a business should just not exist, for example, let's say you just manufacture guns and bombs and stuff, We might just decide one day that you just shouldn't exist anymore because we don't need guns any bombs anymore because we're not fighting each other and we've got world peace. But you buggers will go out and start wars in order to sell your guns and bombs. So this gives us a problem, right? We can't really have that, you know. This is where capitalism bumps up against the goodness of the world and the people, and we can't have that. So a capitalist reformation would end where we have capitalism that is fit for the future, where we can survive it, right? And so also getting growth into the right areas, lots of aspects. You know, I've got this thing called Trevor Bayliss Act. I want to try and do a lot of damage in this despicable corporate law, the mess that corporate law is. I think with democracy and elected sovereignty, we can change anything. This feeling of corporate power being insurmountable, this feeling of things being a trapped cul-de-sac because of how bad capitalism is. Well, no, 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 no. We can get back to capitalism like the kind of capitalism that my great ancestor Robert Burns practiced when he was running a farm, making something, producing something. This overall net positive for society is what will define the success of a business, a capitalist business, after the capitalist reformation. So that's quite a lofty one, isn't it? Yeah, I think I've said enough now. Let's kind of like move on to the next thing. See, I've got what's with the sharks thing? All right, yeah. Well, Jaws. I like to fancy myself a bit of a Quint from Jaws type character, where it's like, look, we've got mob like Omerta style, Al Capone style corporate corruption. The most corporate corrupt power there is really completely blended and sort of sort of grafted onto our democracy and our politics now. We need to pull them apart. I mean, they're not going to like that. They're not going to want that, but it has to happen for us to survive. So get me to do it. I'll do it for you. Know what I do? You know my living. You know how I make a living. I'll get the big shark for you. It's a big fish, a big shark. I'll get it for you, chief. Oh, with a fair and a Jew. Oh, you spare. What's she say? What does he say? Fair Spanish ladies. Oh yeah, that's it. Farewell and adieu, oh you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, oh you ladies of Spain. Quint from Jaws. Yeah, that's me. Okay, next slide, for God's sake, just stop singing. Right, well, while we fire up get the weed on the go, man. Oh yeah, did we do prohibition? Have we done that yet? Well, I think prohibition's later on, mate. This is about George Orwell just now, if you don't mind. Oh, right, okay. Oh, George Orwell, oh, sorry. Another patriotic great figure of Great Britain, a fantastic figure from our history, taught us all, said, look out, this is coming, and we didn't listen. Exactly, mate. He said, look out, this is happening. Just like Atwood. I think that Atwood and Orwell, to me, are the two greatest sci-fi writers of all time. I mean, science fiction in terms of the fact that they're sort of future prediction, dystopian forecasting people who have a visionary ability to look into the future and see what's going to happen. I am very jealous of this. I wish I could look into the future and see what's going to happen. But I only see bad things and fire and problems. So, this is why we're in here. The spirits of this national treasure, you say, is a national treasure. Indeed, a national treasure. A department where the use of facts and logic to bamboozle people or cause internal paradoxes within a victim being intentionally gaslighted by powerful institutions, particularly in global business and politics. Good Lord, man, that's a bit complicated. Sure, tell me. This is probably the most complicated thing I'm working on. I mean, to be honest, like, there are just bigger priorities up front, but it's weird how control of information and what people are thinking and what's going on in the world, how people are being propagandized. So this basically is a thought crime department. In other words, trying to catch people doing propaganda and prevent people from doing propaganda usually on a business free market level. Now, if you think about it, guys, we were talking a moment ago about sovereign power, democratic power. Who should wield such power? Who should have access to such departmental power? Well, at the minute, it is despicable oligarchs. I'm putting forward a tapestry of ideas, and I will put it in that misdemeanor court. Misdemeanor, don't go there. Misdemeanor court, where people are doing things that are very bad, but are also not kind of full-blown criminality. I think the criminal courts and its justice system is completely abolition-worthy and just doesn't do any good for anybody. And there are ways to heal the damage caused by crime. There are ways to prevent crime. There are ways to prevent the cycles of crime that will work. I think, to be honest, even like suggesting that crime and punishment in its current form actually works, I think that is a thought crime straight away. You're ridiculous. What you claim? How could you claim that this just does not work? People reoffend massively. It doesn't really. It costs a vast fortune. All sorts of things like that. You mean you want a department to sort of protect the truth? Bingo. The Department of Truth would be a bit paradoxical. It would be what? It would be Orwellian. That's what it would be. It'd be bloody Orwellian. Exactly. So you see why we would call this a George Orwell Act. Right. Okay. Cool. That's weird as hell. Let's move on. Something easier. Right. Trevor Bayliss. Who's that? Trevor Bayliss. Is that Trevor Bayliss there? No, that's Isaac Newton. He's looking at his apple. That is Isaac Newton. I'm dropping hints because I don't want to tell the whole story of what I have in mind. I think I've come up with a clever way to make loads and loads and loads of money, but I don't want to tell everyone about it. I'd rather bring it into politics and use it in a way in politics. Oh, I see. Okay, so what do you mean market sensitive? You mean you might risk losing money? Exactly. Energy market disruptor. Oh, I bet you get disappeared even having the conversation. Look, I work in a studio which is built upon the concept of using spring technology in apparatus for exercise. I have spent 10 years learning about these machines, teaching on these machines, and being fascinated by the human body and how the human body and spring resistance work together in harmony. If you look at Trevor Bayliss built an incredible invention. He made a little clockwork radio, which you wind up and it produces power, and it produces a radio that just never ever breaks and stops working. Fantastic. Genius. Trevor Bayliss, Mr. Pilates. I wonder what we could, if those two were to be left alone for a little while to come up with some stuff. Can you imagine that? Imagine Trevor Bayliss and Joseph Pilates. We could create them on the holodeck or something. Oh, Star Trek holodeck. Yes, that's the thing that I go in there for the naughty time. The naughty time, mate. Don't listen. This isn't naughty time right now. Can we talk about the thing? Right. Okay. So the characters, you have to bring them back from history and stuff, like they do in Star Trek. Yes, yes, I would do that. I would put Trevor Bayliss and Joseph Pilates together and say, dudes, fix the energy crisis. And I reckon within about a fortnight, you'd have a solution. Now, I might have a solution in my head, but I don't want to tell you what it is. I'm just going to say the Trevor Bayliss Act would be a way of opening up technology and getting rid of basically red tape, literally deregulating the field of science, discovery, and invention, making it possible for people to build things of unique and fantastical design in their very garages. Very inspiring stuff and part of my capitalist reformation. We'll come back to this later. Okay, fair dues. Let's move on. Here I am. This is me. Pilates Renaissance, inspired by Joseph H. Pilates. I get choked up just thinking about this. All I'm going to say very quickly is we have a public health crisis, we have a vast public health emergency, we have a chronic disease emergency, and that the dodgy, toxic capitalists are moving into that market and selling it ivermectin and whatever the hell they're doing. I would like to bring the genius of Joseph H. Pilates into public health in a way that will open up fitness and wellness and the quality of life that I enjoy through this movement, the quality of life that many bourgeois people get to enjoy, but most people do not get to enjoy. That bothers me immensely. It makes, frankly, my working life a sort of discomfortable, that's not a word, man, right, an uncomfortable paradox, because I'm doing a thing that makes me feel good because I'm helping other people, but I understand that it's only for the very wealthy and the fancy pants people. I would prefer to make Pilates a much more abundantly available to the public type thing, trying to do that in a way that the market will be happy with me and not ostracize me or whatever, I don't know. But I'd really like to hear from other Pilates teachers if you're interested in doing so, and let's move on. That's probably enough on that at the moment. It doesn't really say much more about that, except this would be apparatus Pilates going on in public facilities all across the country, fighting for the people's health. Okay? Let's do it. It can be done. It's really not that expensive. It's going to save a fortune if it comes in place. And I think that's why people will really be against it in current medical establishment. All right? Yes, I don't think that the doctor's going to be very happy. Going to hit their business model. Exactly. Yep. Business model. Health is a business, remember? And oh, yeah, I need to tell you about that. We'll move on to that in a minute. Next slide, please. Next slide. Hurry up. Next slide. War. Yeah. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Look, war is not good for anything. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to some of the greats, such as what I've just appallingly demonstrated. Forgive me for that. National warfare is so redundant it can be abolished by law under the terms of the Epoch Nova politicians' oath. Let me be clear about this. We have only been taken out of a world peace status quo by politicians acting inappropriately and against the wishes of those at home. It is almost incredibly rare, I think near impossible, incredibly unlikely, I think extremely unlikely that you would get to a point where the whole nation would be in favor of going to war, and thus, with Epoch Nova, we would completely abolish it. Right? The more countries all over the world that take up an Epoch Nova style contract, you can then have somebody who we can get rid of. So if they're doing the Tony Blair thing and thinking of taking us to war, okay. If they're doing the Keir Starmer thing and saying, yeah, knock yourself out, have all the human lives you want, right? That kind of thing just cannot be tolerated anymore in the new age. It will not be a new age if there is still the capacity for national warfare. We live in an age which is different from any age previous to this, conservative people, border obsessed people, national identity obsessed people. I love my national identity. You're not going to find a person more in love with being Scottish than me. However, that love is not a love that requires the annihilation of other countries and nations. It is only the colonizer, the golden child syndrome, the pathological person, the old man sitting in the chair with his wicked intent to make other younger men take one another out and set all against each other to distract from their failure and folly. This is not a thing we can tolerate in the new age. New age is a kind of global anti-militarism, but it is a specific kind of militarism, which I call samurai militarism. In other words, everyone is in a permanent non-offensive posture. However, There will be preservation of the market. So what I need to do is offer profit in peace. Let there be profit in peace, and let there be peace. I will say to the armed forces and all these despicable, war-hungry buggers, look, we need to find another way to deal with things. This game, boys, you need to put your toys down and stop smashing the place up and stop stropping about and slamming doors and all this nonsense. The leaders that we have, if they have taken over, you understand, Epoch Nova is a grassroots candidacy, politicians building up. And again, with an Epoch Nova 2, you should be able to put in a sovereign power of very, very high status and adapt really the work just to fit your local country. It can just be adapted slightly to fit what you've got there. But get to the point where democratic absolutism and this pragmatic style of populism that I've put forward, if that prevails, war will be impossible. If Epoch Nova prevails all over the world, the more people all over the world that pick it up and say, no, I can do something like this, and just say, I'm going to get into the seat on this basis of promising the people and making those promises law, constitutional law, in that my term in office ends immediately without fail, should I break that, we can effectively abolish warfare on that level. I think it's possible. I believe in it. I see it in my mind. No, 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 said Daniel Day-Lewis as Abraham Lincoln in my dream. Literally, I had a dream about Abraham Lincoln. This is like, it's honest to God, I'm not making this up. I really am not making it up. It was during the pandemic. My loved one at the time was putting themselves in great danger for the nation. You can get an idea, reckon. I don't want to do any disclosure, but like, the pandemic had an effect on all of our lives, and it really demonstrated that there are those who just feel the rules do not apply to them. There are those who feel that, um, people who unfortunately are at the bottom of what is the economic social ladder, in a way, I would argue, like people, for example, may not even have legal status in the country to exist. Maybe they are of a personhood such as mine, where they become a target of the legal sector. They don't have the basic rights. Anywhere where a human being is not being treated like a human being. And I absolutely, although I recognize my status of gender and race and economic background and such, I absolutely refuse to be told that I have not had an equivalent experience with my recent violation. The thing that I have been through, what I am casually trying to report in a as do no harm and legal and safe a way as I can, however, is demonstrative of how sometimes intersections and sometimes cultural institutions and vibes and stuff and just the way people are interpreting events at a time can lead to people being targets of really unacceptable social behavior, right? Which we're, for some reason, a little bit blind to. So, the spirit of abolition, how dare I, again, deploy such terminology in reference to my own work? Look, I can only aspire. I can only listen to what he said in a dream. Do you want to hear what he said in the dream? Yes, for goodness sake, of course I want to hear what he said in the dream. Well, he told me I needed to become a constitutionalist. He explained to me that my institutions that I cherish, that I love, those even being things such as government itself, to be honest, why it's like you're talking about constitutionalism, is like realizing that even your very government, not just the corporations, the state itself, the institutions which I, previous to these events in my life, would trust and vote for and support and back unconditionally, I was taught the hard way, having my safety little life, my life with my stable income from my business and the bomb-proofness of having that, to suddenly have that taken away, and observed loved ones of mine being placed in harm's way, and having many years of our lives just lost, many months of our lives just completely locked in a frozen status that was a complete failure and bungle of public policy, of government policy. Dear listener, the spirit of abolition is needed after the pandemic in every country all over the world, because there were some people that were just forced to work. There are some people who were just forced to put themselves in harm's way, and those people are generally being treated, even now, right now as we speak, will be treated as yet further less than human, some sort of cannon fodder, some sort of tool to be used and discarded. This is akin to slavery. I'm not saying it is slavery. I don't have license on these terms, really, do I? Forgive me for the use of them, indulging in the use of them. However, what I witnessed, what I went through, ruined me as a person. It broke me as a person. Totally and utterly a part of me gone, lost. Never, ever will I be the same after what the pandemic was like. And the consequences of trying to deal with many other life events concurrent with that, the devastation of that, the failure of that, and to watch the Johnson party gay, or the what was her name? Forgive me, the weeping person on the doorstep. Remember, after she had laughed and joked about them all having cheese and wine nights while people died and perished unnecessarily. It's one of the most hideous and horrific sights I've ever beheld in politics. Mr. Lincoln turned up here and he said, "You think you had it bad? Do you think you got it bad?" Because I was just so overwhelmed by the sheer failure of our services, and yet beyond that, the worsening and worsening and worsening of circumstances I've experienced, the calamitous failure to respond from our institutions has given me such extreme skepticism, dear potential voter, dear supporter. I would hope you'd consider me your politician on the basis of abolition not being necessarily this just purely to do with the slave era, but to do with a modern type of abolition, a revival of a spirit of abolition to deal with our modern day white collar crimes as such. These are going on in government, they're going on in giant corporations, and it's going on, sad to say, within our frontline services, abuse in post. The abuses in post that I have witnessed from medics, from lawyers, from sheriffs, even from police officers, is akin to a culture of slave catching and predatory prosecution type behavior from the law. Many, many aspects where people are being paid an abysmal amount of money compared to executives who live in such a Marie Antoinette kind of fashion. It is at the moment, I think that we are on a trajectory towards this, violent uprisings and fascism, which is what I would like to offer myself in politics, and I encourage other people to come forward and just take up a spirit of abolition with me, a Scottish angry hobbit, and say enough, and say no, no, no. It's just not going to change by itself. That's right. That's true. Actually, do you know that's? I mean, if it's not going to be little random angry hobbits like you, who on earth is going to do it? Angry hobbits, hear me. Look, excuse me. No, no. Back to being more serious. Come on, come on. This is a serious subject, and don't be sort of laughing about it. I'm not laughing about it. I'm being genuinely gut-punchingly honest about how horrendous the circumstances I have observed and witnessed. I just cannot take it anymore. And the spirit of abolition, maybe it was a ghost, an actual ghost. I mean, it might have literally just been the actual. Do you mean the actual spirit of abolition is Abraham Lincoln? Maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe he is. But he turned up in my fucking dream and he says, "Man, you think you had it bad?" And I didn't realize this. It's a weird thing about dreams, right? Because you go, "Oh, yeah. So wait a minute, when did they defeat Dixie and when did they get the amendment done?" Because I was like, hang on, what order did that happen? And I was like, oh my God, there's like, and he's like, it was happening at the same damn time. We had to fight them. We had to not only fight the baddies, but figure out a plan of how to beat them in the long run. So you've got this, you need to be an absolute beast to deal with the kind of deep South kind of fascist English, fascist Scottish, even fascist wherever, fascist American, fascist German, fascist. These guys are frothing at the mouth with their rapey, insane pathology. And we need to have the spirit of abolition that says we just will not tolerate living like this anymore. And I came up with a self-litigation society as an answer as well to deal with these kind of legal black holes that people just perish in, where I've experienced social murder myself as a nearly, 3 years completely denied access to any and all justice. It's an unspeakable folly here in Scotland at the moment, akin to some kind of slave-like deep south conditions. And it really is when you see stories like what happened to that lady who had the miscarriage and she gave birth and the state came down on her. The state here in Scotland is equally wanton and equally deranged and equally off the deep end of what on earth is right or wrong as they were in those eras. And it's worse now because they're so posh and bourgeois and ignorant, they don't even know. I have met sheriffs here who have said, how can you call this justice? And he says, what do you mean, how do you call this justice? And then I ask him and explain it. He has no answer. They don't have any, even the slightest inclination for justice. Their whole existence is built upon injustice. Well, it's time to abolish them. It's time to find new justice and build new institutions of justice and dismantle them. I would propose a misdemeanor court and a white collar crime bill and an epoch nova too, where we have sovereignty that is transcendent in power. And when I write to a politician like I have done my MP and MSP here, they won't just wet their pants and hide under their desk for months on end and do nothing for years on end about basic rights violations in the community. They will be motivated, obligated to get up off their arse and do something resembling their job. And they will do that with great pride and dignity. Not this current shambles, not this current despicable, shameful affair that politics and law and health and education, all these kind of features of our society are so very broken. A broken society needs a spirit of abolition, dear listener. Come with me. Right, next chapter. Right, okay, so this is for the criminals, is it? Criminals. For the criminals, people that have done crimes. Yes, people who've done crimes. So criminalization is a bit of a dubious subject for me personally. I find it to be a system of dehumanization, a system of fascism, a system of authoritarian torture, really, of people who are probably most of the time, but not all the time. I mean, I have to be prepared. There are definitely, sadly, many, many people within the institutions of justice who are among the most appalling criminals walking the face of the earth. As it says here in my snappy little video about law and order, at all levels, utterly, utterly broken. Justice is completely bereft from our society, and that is why we have rising fascism. I really blame the majority of the rise in fascism on broken systems of justice, because it is in these places where the greatest harm is done with authority to the vulnerable. We've recently had a scandal. A scandal. Good Lord. The sheer number of scandals coming out of just how appallingly bad and broken and despicable and irredeemable our justice system is. It knows no limits. It knows absolutely no limits. It's a terrifying beast, a monstrosity, a dragon needing slayed, as I like to say. I think that what we need to look at going forward here is quite simply, if I am putting an oath, a promise of as high grand nature as Epoch Nova into politics that says up front, this is a judicial oath. Don't forget, I literally have called it the judicial oath. It's right there within the candidate's oath, because and it's acceptance in the new age. The new age is an acceptance, dear listener, that these old systems must be abolished, and that the only way to true justice would be to democratize and to trauma inform our justice. Trauma informed. That sounds a bit woke. What do you mean by that? Right. That basically means that taking account of who people are, treating them like humans, observing what they have been through, and making judgments of the wrongdoing. I mean, literally, like, we just don't seem to have people comprehensive of a moral compass, of any sense of right or wrong, who are delivering that to us. And so we get anomalies of what we've had, abominations, I would say, rather than anomalies. Truly despicable, the shape of justice from the top to the bottom, including police officers. They are seem to be mobilized with privatized political corporate intentions to do things like track down the police people. They do things like go after eco-terrorism and stuff like that. People who want the planet to be healthy and survive are targets of policing. I mean, they're as absurd as they are disgusting and appalling and unfit to exist in the future. And I'm calling for a broad spectrum of boycott activity, abolition activity, that will be led by people who we haul in to do this Good Apples project, or people who have got good intent, who are currently in the legal sector. And this is what I would say. Remember, my job is to win an election, right? My job is to knock on doors and get people to vote for me. This thing, the Good Apples project, I will be dumping this upon the current judicial people and saying, how in the blue fuck do you expect any of us to take you seriously? Forgive the language. But when you're doing this kind of thing, you and your colleagues, it's you. You want to be this club. You want to have this status. You want to have all this privilege and this Harry Potter Slytherin mumbo jumbo about your working lives and all this privilege and privilege and privilege, but no accountability. Well, I'm sorry. That all completely has to change. And this
feature of judges and sheriffs and whatnot all being hauled out by the people is something that the sheriffs that I've met, who are familiar with me through the encounters I've had to have, which were complete violations of basic justice. Again, basic principles of justice are either unknown to these people or they have contempt for justice. And I would assess that they're probably, I think they are quite moronish. I think they are quite fuckwitish. The presentation of most people that work in these sectors, they have quite a broken logic. They've taken broken logic in on a very deep level, and then they learn to function with that broken logic thereafter. It's a lot like medicine. Too much college, as Hassan Piker would say, too much college. I quite like that phrase. It's like saying, people have been brainwashed in some highly militarized manner, and then they come out capable of rationalizing and defending the indefensible, things that just are not rational or defensible. Okay. So justice system, massive overhaul. Ransack is the word I would use here. Ransack. Abolish. Boycott. I would immediately start with the very first one, would be a call for fathers and rape victims to start abolishing the system, to start forgive me, not abolishing, but doing alternative things. I mean, this is what's happening here now. There's a boycott going on here in Scotland. That's how bad it is. That's how bad. Sectoral failure, sectoral complete lack of shame, sectoral complete and utter blindness. They're all in this state of unconscious incompetence, I think, or they are doing wanton criminality on purpose to make money. Both of these are very likely. It's probably a mixture, and probably both at the same time, isn't it? Yes, that's pragmatism, right? They're both doing the wrong, stupid thing at the same time. Right, let's move on. Project Nomad. Oh, this looks cool, all shiny and nicely colored and whatnot. Yes, mate. Welcome to Project Nomad. Welcome to Project Nomad. So this is a climate crisis adaptation proposal, as well as a housing market proposal, as well as a superior lifestyle proposal. So I'm going to tell you about what my dream is. This is my have a dream. I have a dream type thing. Nothing as illustrious as that. Forgive me, I'm just being silly. What I have a dream where when I retire, I can sort of get onto a vehicle which is a home mobile and is pedal powered by me and can stay on the road for a near unlimited eternal journey. In other words, the vehicle itself would be designed in a way, and I have designed a few Nomads. Many people are designing Nomads at the moment. When I started designing Nomad, I realized that many other people would design one too, because it's just an inherent, obvious direction of travel for design. So there are a couple of similar design models out there. If anyone has got tons of money and likes climate change ideas and wants to invest in cool things, please give me a call for Nomad, because Nomad is one of the coolest projects I have. I love this one. When I think about it, it just makes me so happy. A future where we have no borders, right? This is the cuckoo madness that um, we're laughed at and we're mocked for, woke people, the idea that there shouldn't be borders and that people should have free movement around the world. This is my dream. I want to perish in a world with free movement. I'd like my kids to grow up in a world where they can just get on board a vehicle that does no harm to the world and just travels, could be that's easy enough to repair everywhere, that's easy enough to maintain as a functional unit, that is safe, that is insurable, that's highly technological, that's digital, that has communication attachments, and doesn't, most importantly, break down or require lots of oil and gasoline and all the rest of it, and is actually a very ecological human-powered vehicle. People such as this could become nomads in the post-climate apocalypse. It's sort of a fantasy sci-fi vision of the future I'm putting forward for you, because we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? But building nomads would be a very good idea because nomads, no matter what's going to happen, right, is that we might have mass displacement, we might have huge crisis, we might have a loss of residential areas, we may have vast volumes of, what do you know, volumes of refugees. The refugee crisis, the climate crisis needs global thinking. Global thinking you will find from me in the form of Project Nomad. Project Nomad is kind of a holistic project, so it's got a lot of aspects to it: vehicle design, survival, politics, economic viability, commercial viability, and so on, all these things considered. And above and beyond that, here is this core principle of having nomads, human nomads. Just like, not that one would ever want to drop their Scottishness, their Britishness, their Americanness, their whatever it might be, their Australianism. None of these things, you have to give up your tribe to have a new tribe. No. We just have a traditional tribe, a superior, transcendent tribe. In the spirit of the United Nations, in the spirit of the world, nomads, a culture of humans who do view the world as borderless, who do imagine that all humans could have access to it all and be free and free from any harm or political bullshit, and be able to travel in a way that does not do harm, can even just turn up in your local economy and your local services and provide services and do, respond to whatever dynamic environment the economy and ecology creates for us. Luxurious, comfortable, micro living. Luxurious, comfortable, micro, mobile, healthy, good for the planet, not damaging the environment. In fact, going places to where you could improve the environment just by being there. This is what the nomad is like. This is the true nature of the human, I think. A free human has the whole world, has a vehicle, has a trusty steed. That's what Project Nomad is. It's cool. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah, that is quite cool. Right, okay, what's next then, brother? Move on. Good Lord, more healthcare. I thought we've done healthcare. We've done a healthcare extra special episodic kind of thing, have we not? At least several hours of banter on healthcare. Yes, mate, we've done healthcare. So I'm not going to spend forever going into this. Let's just cover it very briefly. So the voter must be confident and secure that I am someone who will never allow an American-style bankruptcy type model of medicine to come about. Also, the listener must be secure with me in knowing that I'm deeply unsatisfied by our completely inadequate and sort of bizarre class warfare, posh people and working people healthcare that we have. It really is an abolition scenario again all around. There's an abolition issue here, which is just the commodification of health, the commodification of disease. For me, to put it very simply, what you would have is this Elysium Act. The Elysium Act would do quite profound things, like make it completely illegal, like bring in real draconian illegalities to people bamboozling you about health, to people telling you deceiving lies about health, to people selling you drugs and surgeries and things that just have been proven to not work, or doing things non-consensually, right? So it's a very consent-based. It's trying to bring in the sense of choice. There would probably inherently need to be one of those more hybrid systems where there is some fundamental core insurance to cover the arrangement, a transition period, I imagine, really to get us to total health liberty. But the core issue is get the country to total health liberty. There cannot be barriers either of knowledge and education, or in your ability to pay, or in fact the state's ability to raise taxes and pay for healthcare. These barriers, these pinch points, these attacks on health liberty, I think could be criminalized in a useful way that would give us great market regulation. Margaret regulation? You didn't want to regulate Margaret. What do you want to regulate Margaret for? What's she done? No, mate. Market. Health is a market. Yeah, disease is a market. I would say fundamentally it's an abolition issue. If we can get to the complete abolition of bogus healthcare, privatized healthcare, the disease profit motive near disease of human nature is completely inherently conflict of interest, inherently Burke-and-Harish, inherently just should not exist. Substance control, again, another issue of dodgy criminality worthy of abolition. With the National Mental Health Service, as the Mental Health Service would be inspired by the Samaritans, by me. I did some time with Samaritans. Confession, try not to associate that wonderful brand with my stinking awful name, probably a hate figure name, whatever. My time there taught me that we need a National Mental Health Service, and it would be inspired by my time there and the work that they do. I would literally just ramp that service up massively. In fact, I would make it part of national service and incorporate it into a thing I call Happy Bars. And Happy Bars is kind of like a national service version where young people who are most vulnerable to suicide and whatnot at the moment would be learning emotional skills, cognitive wellness skills, how to think healthily, how to not allow toxic hatred to take over and turn to the dark side and whatever. Healthy, modern. Drugs, all you want. Just, again, adult supervision, sensibleness. The idea that what we have now is sensible must change. What we have right now is insane. Elysium Act is inspired by the movie with Matt Damon of that same title. Check out what happens at the end of that film when they tell all the robots and the resources and the machines, and they really dispatch the resources of society to improve everyone's health for real. And it is obvious that we could achieve such a phenomenon here on this earth. I think that we can, and that is what Elysium shall be, and we will call it the Elysium Act. Right, okay. Well, that sounds fantastical. And just remember that there's hours of this elsewhere on the YouTube. Go and enjoy it. Right. Move on now. Move on.
All right, so what's this one here? Open source medicine. Yeah, we're going to jump about a little bit here. So this is just because my tapestry, it is a bit of a tapestry. Some things lead on to each other. It's just how it is. Open source medicine for all. So having free universal healthcare is absolutely, there is no liberty without total health liberty is my argument. And there are many features of how liberty and human liberty, our rights and liberties ought to be protected by such a unique sovereign or such a unique shift of power, such a Copernican change in how we do politics. We're going to give the people democratic power in the spirit of Magna Carta, etc., etc. This will create a much better society. It will, however, collapse a few markets, I reckon. Sorry. And that's just something we have to cope with. And we sort of do that in a planned and, a way that makes sense. But open source medicine for all, absolutely fundamental. And over here, judicial reform. Judicial reform. All right, misdemeanor courts. Misdemeanor courts. Who is misdemeanor? I'd like to. Is she available later on, around about 5 o'clock? No, listen, dude. We're on the thing. Don't. All right, let's keep that to ourselves. The misdemeanor thing. Don't be disgusting. That's just being silly, all right? Look, not disgusting anyway. Misdemeanor. Who is she? I'd like to. Fuck. Do I have to just delete this? Don't delete it. I thought it was supposed to be authentic, and you just sort of made a sort of slightly dirty joke. It's not the end of the world. What's the matter? Just leave it on there, right? Okay, leave it on there. A misdemeanor. A misdemeanor court, right, would be a place. So I really think the criminal justice system is a complete monstrosity, a barbarian, Neanderthal, fuckwit level institution. Oh, shit, I've sworn now. Said fuck. Were you planning on saying F bombs and stuff? Not really. No, I think that's the first one in here. Forgive me. Never mind. Maybe just delete this and start again. Good idea.
Well, that was quite a tapestry. That's what that is, a tapestry of something. I mean, it's sort of weaving a. You're weaving. That's certainly, there's a fair bit of weaving going on. I'm not to say. I don't want to point out how totally unremarkable your work is. I just want to point out how completely insane most of it is. That's what I want to say. Insane. Yes, unremarkable. I mean, remarkably insane, perhaps. There, I'll concede. It's remarkable and insane at the same time what you've done, Mr. Dunn, with your time in captivity and whatnot. Your sort of pound shop Julian Assange existence has been deployed to do absolute madness. I think this is just completely absurd. How could you possibly think that this kind of thing would get you any votes or get you any attention, or it could be taken seriously by anyone? I don't have any idea. Where else have I got? And I have to say that the artwork in particular, the logos and stuff, I mean, to be honest, for somebody who's sort of a technophobe, I mean, you seem to be quite willing to sort of produce very average work over very long periods of time, which is admirable in some ways, you know. I mean, particularly with someone with no qualifications, never done any such a thing. I mean, you really don't have a single qualification at all, do you? I'm a master teacher. This thing, master debater. That's what you are. You're the ultimate master debater I've ever met. I've never been master debated by in such a horrific way for such a prolonged time on the internet. I mean, poor souls. If you've listened to this, what on earth are you doing with your time? I mean, for real. You might be mad too. Maybe you are mad. If you're listening to this Munchurian madness and thinking, maybe I've had enough drugs and I'm mad enough to think the world could be a better place, maybe I've done enough substances that I've lost enough of the sort of straightforward thinking that one should have when one is dealing with politics to make sure that nothing really changes and everything stays the same. Don't you dare learn about anything new, Mr. Dunn. Just you tolerate your despicable disease that is a real thing and not just some bullshit we've made up to make you take drugs. No, 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 no. Don't be thinking about alternative politics the way you did alternative healthcare. Don't be thinking about alternative politics the way you've done alternative handling life nightmares. The things you've ever done, as if you've had any success at all. Let's be clear, the fact that you're still alive and functioning at all is kind of a small miracle. The best you can hope for is to be laughed at enough on the internet for the thing to carry it in some way and to have some clever people, you know, point out how ridiculous and absurd your madness is. Oh, Jesus. Look, see, I feel a bit better now. Weird. I don't know what that is. Listen, what's on the screen here, dear listener? You're still here, do you listen to me? Let me draw your attention to the image, and then I will let you go. Thank you so very much for giving me your time and attention. I am going to ask you for money. You'll see in among all that, there's a Patreon. I am the Munchurian candidate. I'd like to help other people become candidates. That's what I'd like to do. I mean, I don't think I'm the king. I think I might be a kingmaker potential person, though. Somebody who could help others grow. Someone who could help others take us into a new age. What do you mean? What's that new age again? What was new Epoch Nova or something? New age. It's just novelty, absolute madness. Things just stay the same, do they? They stay the same. Oh yes, everything just stays the same, and everything just goes the way it is going to go, and everything comes around again, and it goes around, and it comes around again, and all that. The planet is dying, man. Yes, but it's really, you know. Okay, that's a bit of a problem, but everything's going to be fine. I mean, look, we've got good politicians, and everybody's doing their bit. You know, we've got fascists in charge. We had a guy having a party and a big piss up while we were all dying in the thousands. Yes, well, you know, I mean, don't worry about the old. Well, I tell you what, we do have though. We've got those rock solid British establishments, the monarchy. Good old Britishness and British establishment and post-Brexit era Britain, we're going to be stronger, take back control, have more control. It's chaos, man. Things are on a downward spiral, a death spiral and all that. I mean, things are just so very, very bad out there. I mean, people are not happy. The people voting more and more and more for far-right parties. This is a blancmange of similar but slightly different, a spectrum of hate parties, really, with slightly different flavors of hatred, perhaps. Yes, well, I mean, at least we've got our health. One thing that's good about Great Britain, you know, we've got our healthcare. That's that healthcare, famous world-leading healthcare, best in the world, actually, don't you know? Best in the world. mate, people are like dying in corridors. I witnessed a person being injected against their wishes by people calling unborn babies parasites, and I witnessed people getting sent home from hospital in a manner that I would never imagine a soldier would get sent back from a battlefield. But I saw a hospital doing it to a person. I also saw a hospital drop my beloved mother on her head, who then died. And no one ever took responsibility for it. No one ever takes responsibility. We don't have healthcare, man. Right. Okay. But if I have a fall and stuff, I break my hip and stuff. If I fall down because I'm a good old Tory, the ambulance will be here quite quickly and stuff because it's the UK. I saw one take hours just recently, just in the last couple of years, like, and things have gotten worse since then, I believe. Right. Well, we've got the British Army. What about the British Army, the RAF, and the Navy, and our military forces, our sort of defence services, and our sort of lads in the battlefield, all ready to go, chucks away, sort of military. Our military might, our powerful Navy, that's it, our forces across the seas, and our colonial power, can even when alone, fighting alone, stand alone. People were sort of, this nation has got a lot of hatred worldwide now, don't you think? I mean, a lot of the colonies are just saying, like, why the hell should we put up with you? And Scotland continually wanting to leave the UK, for example, or even like Irish unification on the kind of go since Brexit. I mean, people really do have found a specific, would you not say, English fascism? I don't want to stir shit up, let's try and be brotherly about it. But would you not say that English fascism is driving politics a bit at the moment? And that's kind of toxic for your ideas about the colonies and things from overseas. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, it's not good, is it? I mean, what is the point of being British then? If all of these things that are cool about being British, even like cool stuff, Concorde and all that, there's no Concorde anymore. I mean, there's not really any, cool stuff on the telly anymore. Actually, no. If you think about it, at least we're on the telly all the time. That's right. You're on the TV. You're the villains and everything. The villains in Star Wars. Well, at least we're not the. What are you? You're the little hobbits or whatever. Well, actually, now you mention it, it's way past the lenses here, brother. I don't want to dump the country. I don't want. This is not about talking down who we are. I want to talk down our establishment. I want to talk down our leadership. I want to talk down those that we have trusted to have proven to be untrustworthy, not in a way to direct hatred. Do not take to the streets, dear listener. Do not become the lynch mob. Do not take to hatred. Do not become like Palpatine wants us to take up hatred and strike me down forever with your anger. You'll become part of the dark side. Don't become the fascist. Don't turn to fascism. Even with your terrible frontline lefty politicians and how bad they are kind of someone not to turn to. Cuckoo-cuckoo. Who do we turn to? Lonely eyes will turn to you. Could it be you? Maybe it is you. Maybe you could be a Munchurian candidate. Maybe you could do this better than me. Maybe you could do it just as well as I'm doing. Maybe you could pick up my ball and run with it, man. What do you mean, me? Me? What do you mean, me? Who do you mean? Who do you mean? Who are you talking to when you say candidate? Who could be a candidate? Well, I think anyone could be a candidate, mate. I mean, I think you could probably go into the average pub in Leith and pull out a random on a weekday. A random sort of like me, maybe. And perhaps they would manage to do a better job, just given enough time and energy and input and a little bit of backing, a little bit of financial support. Don't be shy with the old cha-ching if you're loaded. Hey, look, if you're loaded, Christ, there's nothing left. What are you holding on for? What are you going to buy? We're going to end up like, remember War of the Worlds? I remember War of the Worlds when I was a kid. What's this tangent? War of the Worlds, the movie, War of the Worlds from the 50s, the original one when the world was getting taken out by the Martians, and then people are ransacking the towns and cities and riot. That's what we're facing. We're facing societal breakdown, right? Are you going to sit there and go, everything's going to be all right, British, blah, 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 like that? Are you going to do that? That was a terrible impression of me. I don't even talk anything like that. Anyway, I mean, look, I've just got to, look, we've been here for eons. Do you know how old this country is? Things just keep going and things will be fine and it'll be all right and it'll be fine. What about the dinosaurs and planet Mars? You've seen Mars? Mars wasn't always like that. What are you talking about now? I thought you were saying War of the Worlds. Are they from the Martians? That's where they came from. Yeah, I think that's where they came to take the Earth and all that. Look, maybe that's what the little floaty UFO guys. I don't fucking know. I'm just saying, man. Politics is chaos, and there's mad stuff going on. And the bare minimum we can all do is just take a run at politics. Just try our best, see if we can get a job in politics and punt a corrupt person or a non-existent politician, a politician that's got contempt for their job. Oof, away you go. See if we can clean up. I fancy myself an Elliot Ness. You fancy yourself quite a lot of things. What do you mean, Elliot Ness? Elliot Ness got Capone, man. Elliot Ness took down Capone. He took down the mob. I mean, he was, like, ironic because I'm a Munchurian candidate. I wanted to make weed completely, end prohibition. Ironic use of Elliot Ness. You get it? Ironic use. But Anyway, the spirit of abolition, a spirit of deep, deep anti-corruption, does not have to be fascist and toxic. Surely that one can have anti-corruption inclinations, one can have abolitionist inclinations, and still be a capitalist of some repute, and still be like, I don't know, not some toxic stereotype of leftism or rightism. I'm just an amalgamation of lots of different toxic stereotypes all in a one go. Oh, for God's sake. At least you laugh at your own jokes. This is what schizophrenia sounds like at the early stages, folks. What's going to happen is, over time, I'm going to start to take over like the Green Goblin, and soon you'll come on listening for ENF Down, and instead we just get this Munchurian madman, and I'll tell you how it is. In politics, what we do is just give me all your money. Give me all of your money. There you go. That's why you've got the bull here. You've got the bull by the horns on the Wall Street. When you get the Wall Street, you want to tame the Wall Street bull. Is that right? I do, mate. Yeah, I didn't make it to be all sinister. Just like I'm just giving him a little look, just gently. Look, pal, it's gonna be all right. Calm down. Hobbit versus Bull. Bull would probably win. I think that. Well, speaking of Bull, have we had enough of this now? Bullshit. For more and more bullshit, just follow this man on various platforms. And if you're insane, you could give him some money too and encourage him. Christ almighty. Good luck to us all. Please, Lord, let there be superior politicians than this one here that we found in Leith, the town of Leith. It's a boutique Pilates studio. Maybe if you need your bike fixed, you could give him a call for that. But Christ, don't tell him to do more politics or any singing or poetry or any madness, all right? Don't encourage him. Thanks, man. Thank you, listener. Bye.